Hi, this is Catherine, and welcome back to Taking Tea with Catherine. I'm drinking, oh my goodness, stress support. I'm not incredibly stressed right now. I'm, beyond my normal Catherine stress, but I know I'm going to go into a slight rant today, so I thought I should keep myself calm if I'm going to carry on and do that. I haven't done a keep calm and carry on joke in a while. Anyway, it's too hot right now, and I've got the bag hanging out, etc. Well, not really the bag, the tag. I don't usually do that for black teas, but sometimes for herbal I'll keep it in for a while. But enough about the tea, because I've already covered that tea on this channel before. Today I'm doing a Friday Reads, which basically encompasses the last 2 weeks, not counting the 2 mystery novels that I finished and covered in Tea and Mystery. The obvious one. I don't like this pillow. But anyway, yeah, so I have a stack of books here that I'm either in the middle of reading or finished reading, and Freddie decided to take a nap on some of them, because that's what he does. But I will start with, should I get the rant over with first? Yeah, let's get the rant over with first, and then we can enjoy talking about books, right? Alright, so I've been, I don't want to say struggling, but you guys know I juggle like a billion books at once, and it's just my thing. It has its ups and downs. I can usually keep track of the plots, unless they're way too similar, and then I could get a little confused. 2 books I am reading mentioned the word Jupiter in 2 different contexts, but I got for a moment confused when I saw it, because one was talking about some kind of periodical, and the other one was talking about the actual Roman god that someone was portraying, and my brain just went, Bleh. So it does happen. I do get confused sometimes, but not usually too badly. But there's always the little problem of when you're reading a bunch of books, there are some books that you're going to be reading for a very long time. And that means that you may not finish certain ones, especially the chunky ones, especially the classics. And so I'm not struggling through The Tenant of Wildfell Hall. I actually like it. I just somehow have been reading it over a period of time where I've been reading a lot of other books, and it just, I mentioned it before, but it slowed down a little bit when it changed points of view, even though it was a very important part of the book. It just did. And then I decided, okay, let's get back into this, and I'm going to keep going, and I started to enjoy it again. And I am enjoying it. I still am. But then I hit a snag with something, and okay. Let me preface this by saying, I do understand that when you're reading classics, especially big classics that everybody knows about, you may know what's going to happen at the ending. Jane Eyre. I've not read the book through. I have not read it from cover to cover, but I know basically the story and what is going to happen. And that's just because it's just a part of life. It happened. There's a lot of other books that I can say that about, but that one just came to me because it was a Bronte. But I kind of, and Dickens too. There's a lot of Dickens that even before I read it, I knew a lot of things that were going to happen. One of the novels has a episode of spontaneous combustion, and I was reading it waiting for that moment, which seems like a weird thing to wait for, but But I have this thing where if I'm reading books about books, I always think that the writer should have some little bit of an understanding that not everyone has read every single work by that person, and to judge for themselves whether or not they should spoil the entire book for them. So, that being said, I've been reading, I should say, I haven't actually gotten extremely far in it, but Take Courage, Anne Bronte and the Art of Life by Samantha Ellis. I don't dislike the actual writing itself. At least not right now. I've read reviews that had mixed reactions to it in that respect. And I realize that, a reader should pick up on the fact that it says somewhere about, okay, Take Courage is Ellis's personal, poignant, and surprising journey into the life and work of a woman sidelined by history. So she was going to be talking about Anne Bronte's work. I get that. Maybe I should have realized that there were going to be some spoilers. However, I got into the 2nd chapter, which is basically the 1st chapter after the introduction. So it's basically chapter 1. And I'm telling you, it's literally begins this book with a description of the tenant of Wildfell Hall, including spoilers, all spoilers. Like, just keeps going. paragraph to paragraph. Let's just talk about, here's what happens in the book. Not, I'm going to, you know, occasionally refer to something that happens in the book. So I was like, we had a beautiful day in the neighborhood in New York, a couple days actually, where the weather was just spring-like. And I had a migraine, but I managed to soldier through at one point, take some Tylenol. I went to Central Park. I found a nice bench. No one was bothering me. It was beautiful. I was looking at some birds and just everything was going well. And I came up to that part and I just got angry. And I just stood up and had to take a walk. So, and then after I cooled down a little bit, as you do, I said, you know, I've been a little unreasonable. This is a study of the work, and it's a study about her and the work, and maybe if I'm reading a book about Anne Bronte, she only wrote 2 complete novels. I should have probably read them both by now if I'm going to read a book about her. Okay, so I'm trying to be forgiving in that respect. And yes, I read Agnes Grey a while back, and I don't remember everything about it, but when she refers to things that are spoilery, it doesn't bother me so much. But, I was just putting up with the fact that now I know what's going to happen in The Tenants of Wildfell Hall. I knew a little bit about what was going to happen, but I didn't know everything. I didn't know the exact ending. And, but I was just coming to terms with it and saying, I'm going to keep reading it. I'm not going to do what I did with Anna Karenina, where I abandoned it as soon as I found out about the train. Not going to say anymore. Etc. But then I kept reading again, and I have been reading a little more in this book. It's not like I abandoned it completely. I got up to page 85 in this Anne Bronte book, but as I was reading, I realized she just started talking about Shirley by Charlotte Bronte. And what I did when I saw it coming is I blurred my eyes. I think everyone could do that, right? You sort of like do a weird squint where you're not really seeing what you're seeing. So I just skipped a paragraph or 2 and realized it was over, and she wasn't going to keep spoiling Shirley for me, which I haven't even started yet, which is not by Anne Bronte, it's by her sister. So I was like, okay, she also goes into Jane Eyre and I think Wuthering Heights, and I get that. I get those are the big ones that most people know things about. Wuthering Heights has a whole song about what happens in it, so whatever. But that's just, even though I think I'm going to continue in this just because it is interesting, I'm just frustrated with that. And I want to know what you guys think. Should I calm down a little bit and just let it go when it comes to like classics, because that's something you have to risk when you're reading things about books. I read a book what Jane Austen ate and what Charles Dickens knew, I think it was, and it got into a lot of things, and books about Jane Austen talk about all kinds of things that happen in Jane Austen. I don't know, I just somehow thought it wouldn't just start off with spoiling the entire thing. So I think I've ranted enough about that, right? I also have this book that I got very recently because, you know, so much for my book buying ban, but I thought if I'm going to actually get into the Brontes, I'm going to have a full-on chunky novel. And this is the Brontes' Wild Genius of the Moors, the story of a literary family by Juliet Barker. I want to read it, but I'm scared because now I'm thinking maybe she's going to start talking about what happened in Shirley and the Professor, which I haven't read either of yet. I don't care if she talks about Jane Eyre, like I said. I know what happens. But I don't know. We'll see. I'm not ready to read this book anyway. It's huge, and I have too many books I'm reading as it is. But I'm going to continue with The Tenant. I'm just a little disillusioned with life. And, okay, so where are we? Etc. Okay, I have been reading pretty steadily into Barchester Towers, and I'm really liking it now. Like, in the beginning, I liked it, but not loved it. I said, okay, this is establishing people, a lot of little things. I knew a little bit about it from reading The Warden, but I had read The Warden a long time ago, which is kind of like the first book in the Barchester series. Kind of a prequel, I don't know. I think it's just the first book. And now it's really picking up and I love it. And my sister actually read the whole thing because she just absolutely loves Trollope and goes really fast into it. So, but she knows better not to spoil things for me. That's the thing about Barchester. It's a classic, but it's not as well known of a classic. Sorry. Just gotta adjust something here. Ah. Okay, we're back after that little shake up. Okay, it kind of calms me down doing that little timeout. So I do like Barchester Towers. I'm gonna continue. I've been reading a lot of it this week, and it's kind of funny. There's just a lot of infighting between a new Bishop and the people who were previously there, and now we see people, possible romances about to happen, but maybe not. Anthony Trollope is the kind of person who sort of spoils you in his own books, where he'll say something about a possible couple and then he says, no, that's not going to happen, don't worry. I kind of like that. But what I like, again, about Anthony Trollope is that he is famous, well known among people who love British literature and classics, etc., but not well enough that he usually gets spoiled. Usually. I'm going to do a haul soon, but I just picked up a biography of Trollope, and I'm afraid to read it now because of what happened to me. But we're going back into stressful things, and I haven't even started my tea yet. It's still too hot. But, okay. So, I know you guys know that if you've been watching, that I'm obsessively reading books about London right now, when possible. Not all of the books I'm reading are taking place in London, but most of them are, and I'm really trying to take my TBR for next month maybe and make it mostly London too. There will be exceptions, but you know. So any of the the TBR, the classics, other TBRs for this year that you may have seen already, if they're not taking place in London, you may not see a lot of them until the next quarter. But we'll see. Mood reading is a thing. But on that note, I started Full Dark House by Christopher Fowler. Now, I think this is actually the first of the Peculiar Crimes unit. So I started it somewhere in the middle-ish, a more recent one. I think I started with The Victoria Vanishes, which was basically about a pub called the Victoria that just suddenly disappears and then someone gets killed, you know, all that sort of thing. And I love this series, and I have read it out of order, which means I probably found out things that I didn't need to find out until I read it, kind of thing, but I'm okay with that. With this series, for some reason, I'm okay with that. And I tend to forget some of that anyway. But I finally realized I should really get to the beginning. And surprisingly, one of the main characters of the Bryant and May duo dies in the beginning of this one. And I'm thinking, did he? Or is this like a Sherlock Holmes death? You know? Or do they really start in the future? But this book came out around 2003, and it's a little later, so I'm doing the math, and I'm realizing that these two characters, Bryant and May, who are like the heads of the Peculiar Crimes unit, would be way ancient at this point. So it goes back and forth in two different time periods. It starts in contemporary times, which I guess is basically 2003-ish. And it goes back to like the Blitz time period, 1940 in London. And when this pair first meet up, and other people too, and they start working together, which, you know, the origin story, or whatever you call it. And I love it because it's intriguing to me, and there's, you know, strange murders happening, or deaths at least, but you know they're going to be murders, in a theater that I've actually never been inside of, but I've seen many times in London, the Palace Theatre. And it is in this beautiful place on, I don't know if I can pronounce the name, Shaftesbury Avenue. I don't know if I'm saying that right. But for years when I'd go to London, I'd pass by, it had the face from Les Miserables, you know, the Cosette face on it. But, so that was there for a very long time. And now it's, I think, the Harry Potter play, Cursed Child or something. Yeah. So it's, but the palace there is beautiful from the outside. So now this takes place in 1940, mostly on the inside, but I know what they're talking about because of that area. The West End is an area of London that even though I could probably get lost in there, I have spent so much time there that I'm more familiar with it than most other places. And I'm not going to get into too much because, again, I don't want to get too much into the plot. I'm going to talk about this book during Tea and Mystery the next time. But one of the things that excited me, well, first of all, there was a reference to Freddie Mercury that made me laugh because anytime Freddie Mercury pops up in a book, it's great. Not him himself, just the name came up. But when they're called out to an issue, to investigate something, they are called out to a guy who makes, I guess, who cooks chestnuts or whatever outside. I don't know. I don't know if they still have them now. I haven't seen them myself, and I've been to London during cold weather, so I don't know. but they say that they're right outside of Marks and Co., the bookshop on 84 Charing Cross Road. And I just had such a nerdy moment there. I just stopped in the middle of that, and I was like, oh my goodness, they actually incorporated one of my favorite things ever in this book. And this is what Christopher Fowler does in this series. He takes the best, nerdiest things about London and finds his way into it. It finds his way to incorporate it, and I just love that. But in the middle of that moment, I said, oh my goodness, I have to read more Helene Hanff out of nowhere. Okay, so I was reading this on, I think it was when I had off for Martin Luther King Day. So I immediately stopped reading Full Dark House for a little while and picked up The Duchess of Bloomsbury Street again. So this is the kind of sequel to 84 Charing Cross Road. Her diaries of her first trip to London and England. And some people say, oh, it was kind of, it's just a diary, it's kind of dull, whatever, and she's kind of crotchety and cranky. And I'm like, that's what I love about it. It's her first experience in her way. Yes, she does have a tantrum in a certain place because people are taking her around and they think she's going to love being in a bookshop. Not so much, which is surprising, but and she's not going where she wants to go. Okay, is this a spoiler? I don't know if this is a spoiler. It's just a thing that happens in the book. There's many other things that happen in the book. And I love it because I've had moments like that where you've been with people and they're so kind to take you somewhere. Like if you're at a place where you don't know it, so you need someone to guide you, or I don't drive, so people drive me somewhere, and I appreciate it so much. But then you realize they're not really taking you where you want to go, and they're not listening to you. It can be frustrating. My problem is that sometimes I don't express myself that I really want to go somewhere, and so I'll start sulking, and then, So I don't know what's worse, having like a sudden tantrum or sulking, but it was a pretty funny moment, and I just like the way she is. She just, she's not really that much of a traveling person. She doesn't really like travel, but she's such an Anglophile. She loves all the London literature she's been reading over the years, and mostly nonfiction and essays and stuff, but she does get into certain novels, and I appreciate that about her. And it's also, if you read 84 Charing Cross Road and the people she wrote to, not everybody's in the book, but there are people that she finally gets to meet, and that's important. And it really scratches an itch. And I honestly, did I say that already? Scratching an itch? I think I say that way too much. You guys gonna think I have rashes. But I've read this book a couple times already, and I in fact brought it with me at least once to London to kind of read while I was there, just feel the mood. But it was worth another go because I just wanted that feeling of returning to London through Helene Hanff's eyes, and I did like it. And it was in 1971, I think, when she went back. She visits someone and in their home, and they point out that Agatha Christie is down the road. And for a second I thought they were talking about like a statue, because I forgot what time period it was. Like, oh, they must have some kind of tribute to her here. And then I realized, no, Agatha Christie was still alive. So then again, another thing was incorporated into my joy that I didn't remember from last time. And that's the thing, I haven't read this one in a while, so it's kind of, there's always things that you get into. And when I was done with that, I pretty quickly started reading Q's Legacy again. And I've talked about this again also. But it's a little bit of it's a little more background of her life, but not overly. Just mostly about her relationship with this guy, Arthur Quiller Couch, I think that's his name, who was a professor, I guess, at, I think it was Cambridge. And I don't know if he was educated at Oxford and educated, I don't know, in those, I keep forgetting. But she educated herself through his books. She would read what he talked about and would go and look it up and read that. So she learned so much. So then she goes into how she got into writing to Marks and Co. and that whole deal and what happened to her after the ending of that book. Not so much about her first trip to London because she covered that, but she goes into more into her life. And you really realize how her life wasn't always easy because she didn't have, as much success with what she set out to do, which was basically to write plays for Broadway. and to be a writer in general. And she did have steady work over the years, but it was never enough to really be comfortable. And 84 Charing Cross Road really did catapult her, not into riches, but into opportunities. I don't think she was ever going to be filthy rich, but she just had slightly more of a secure situation after that. And that's important. And it's weird because as a New Yorker, knowing where she lived, the first apartment a little bit, but the second apartment where she lived, because I was working down the street from there when she died, and I didn't know it because I was young and didn't know. But that area, even in the 90s when I was down there, was kind of a place that you consider not a place to live in if you have just a hand-to-mouth kind of situation, or just a, you know, just a regular-ish income. Like, you think of this is the Upper East Side. How could, even on the 2nd Avenue, how could anyone afford to live there? But again, it's like anything else. Things change. There was a time period where you could spring for an apartment in the Upper East Side and not have a massive income and somehow make it. You still wouldn't have like this lavish lifestyle and be able to afford, you know, all kinds of trips and fancy clothes or whatever, but you could live. And so it was just, historically, it was interesting. When I say historically, it wasn't that long ago. A lot of it, well, not the beginning part, but a good portion of Q's legacy is in my lifetime. And it's just strange. Anyway, so those are the books that I've been reading, and either in the middle of. Well, these two I actually finished because they're short and easy to get through, as it were. And that and Anne of Green Gables earlier in the month, that's 3 rereads in 1 month. That's crazy for me, because I'm kind of that kind of person who needs to read new stuff because I have so much to read that rereading I need to do, I only usually do once or twice a year. And now I've already done 3 times in 1 month. So in a way I kind of like it though, because to me, even though I have plans and TBRs and everything, I kind of like the feeling of, you know, just going with it. So I think I've calmed down. I haven't even had my tea yet. And it's good. So I'm going to enjoy it. And hopefully I will watch this over again and post it. And this has been Catherine from Taking Tea with Catherine. This is Friday Reads, and I will see you soon.